Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm still sick, but that's because it hasn't been 2 days. It's only been 2 minutes for me since you heard Wednesday's episode. If you listened to Wednesday's episode, which if not, why are you not listening to Forever Alone? That sounded very dramatic.
Well, maybe they listened on the other feed and they didn't hear our intro because they did what you asked them to do.
That's true. Maybe they're paying attention and following instructions.
In which case, we will not shame you for not listening to our introduction.
Okay.
And you may not know that Rachel is sick.
Yeah, I have a cold. Wasn't COVID. Got tested. Twas negative. It's just a bad, like standard, like as the Brits would say, a bog standard head cold. So I might have to mute myself and cough or blow my nose or any assorted number of really attractive things in this episode.
Also, why, if we sound different at all, it's because we typically try to podcast in the same room.
We are not in the same room.
We're not doing that because I don't want to catch her cold. So it is what it is.
Guess I'll see you in like another week. It'll have been 2 weeks by the time I see you next.
I know.
It doesn't usually go that long without seeing you. In person, that is. Okay. So, but before we dive into our new episode of Dear Krachel, we have an announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kristen's like trying to hype. She's not being a great hype woman right now. She's like, yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in 2 weeks, September 17th, 2 weeks from today, we will be opening up enrollment again for one-on-one coaching. You guys follow us, have been listening to this podcast for any length of time. You might know that we typically take on clients at specific points in the year, usually 3 times a year. We kind of do it in waves. We call it an enrollment period because it's just easier for us to plan and to kind of take on clients all at once in little waves than it is randomly throughout the year. So we do take on clients randomly throughout the year, but they have to go on a wait list first. And then when we're ready, we might talk to them.
So at the end of the year, we open up spots and say we have a certain number of spots that are currently open. And then the rest of the year, you take your chance. And maybe we have availability, maybe we don't, but you join the wait list and see what happens. But one of those enrollment periods is happening, in 2 weeks.
We're just telling you so that you are prepared, because deciding to do coaching is not like it shouldn't be a spontaneous decision. It should be like at least I processed it for at least 24 hours kind of decision.
Well, and that's because the work you'll have to do in coaching is not insubstantial, the work on yourself at least. No. And it is a pretty decent commitment. We only now work with clients in a 6-month capacity. So you get 12 sessions over the course of 6 months.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up, since it's a time commitment, it's a financial commitment, it's a energy commitment. And we don't want to just say, hey, want to sign up today? And you hadn't really thought about it much. So this is your heads up. You can check out the page on our site where you can get a lot more info into what that entails, working with us in that 6-month capacity. And we'll be talking about it, of course, over the next couple of weeks to remind you. But that official window opens in 2 weeks.
The link is in the show notes. You can go to clarityonfire.com. You can go to the Work With Us tab and click on one-on-one coaching if you want to check it out. For new people, the only option is 6 months. 12 sessions, 6 months. We can talk to you about actually how that tends to go, because it's not like every other week for 6 months. It's a little bit more front loaded and then we taper off toward the end. If you're an old client who wants to come back, we will let you do less than that. Like we'll talk to our old clients about what they need. But if you're new, there's a certain amount you're just going to need.
Yeah, old clients know they can just email us.
Yeah, that's a privilege they have.
Yeah, they can just hit us up and ask for what they want, and we'll see how we can make it work.
But I will say, like, this is very, very limited this time. Because if you'll recall, back in, what was that? Early July, our July normal person episode was with Kristen. And she talked about how her Thriver self wanted a job. So she went and did that. But now that means she can't coach as very many people anymore.
My schedule is limited.
And I didn't just decide, yeah, sure, let me take on everything Kristen was doing. No, I didn't do that. So we now have even more limited capacity. I'm not even sure I can put a number on it, but I'm pretty sure it's not even 10 people.
Like I think it's single digits.
I think it's single digits too.
Between us.
We've never done that. Like we've never had a coaching enrollment and been like, I don't want 10 people. So
I guess it makes it exclusive. It's not exclusive on purpose. It's exclusive by necessity.
Yes. So anyway.
So this really is first come, first serve. We always say that, but it especially is now. So if you get your...
if you're first come and you're like not serious and you don't have any money, then I'm not going to serve you. But yes, you know what I'm saying.
Right. The people who are ready to commit earlier on, you might get a spot and then we might have to put some people on a wait list.
You might just have to wait to start with us. Hey, I don't mind being a hot commodity. I don't look or feel like one right now, but I am one. So
with your box of tissues next to you.
Yes. See that? So I don't think we've done a very good job making people excited about this, but do you need to be?
Isn't our whole podcast making you excited about the things we talk about and share? And
like, come on.
I would hope so.
If you've been listening to us for this long, I shouldn't have to do that much work to get you excited. I shouldn't have to tell you about the value of coaching. You should just get it at this point.
Also, we'll be talking about it for weeks, so don't worry.
I don't need to talk all about it right now. This is just an FYI for your edification, listener. Okay, so that's that. That's our announcement. And now we do Dear Krachel.
Okay, we have our
I want you to read the first and the third because I don't want to read as many today.
That is fair considering you're all stuffed up. Okay, let's just jump into number one. Hi, Krachel. I've just been offered a job that seems really great, but after being let go a few years ago and rebuilding myself, I'm nervous to jump into something new. The last time I took a risk, I failed in a big way, and it's taken some time to heal. What advice do you have for me? Are my nerves a sign that I should pause, or are they a lingering symptom from pain I experienced last time? That is from a huge fan forever. Well, I already like this person because they're a huge fan forever.
Okay, a huge fan forever. Hear me out, okay? Take 30 seconds. I can't guarantee it's going to take me 30 seconds to say this. And hear me out. I just started dating a new guy and I think he's really great and I'm kind of excited, but I'm nervous because a few years ago I got burned by an ex and I don't know. Do you think the nerves are a sign I shouldn't continue to date this guy? Or do you think maybe it's just a symptom of getting burned the last time I had a relationship with someone? What do you think? What do you think, Forever Fan? Like that's
you can see in the way the question was asked, how much of this feels like the hesitancy is about old pain. Because the very first thing you said was, I've been offered a job that seems really great. I didn't hear red flags, yellow flags. Maybe you didn't include them, but you didn't mention anything that's giving you hesitation about this job offer. Sounds like that on the whole, from what you know now, could be a really great opportunity. It's understandable that when you've failed in a big way or felt like something completely backfired, that you're nervous, is that going to happen again? But that experience has almost nothing to do with this current experience. That was completely different people, completely different circumstances, completely different company and different job. And everything about that was unique and different from what you're doing now. So this job The result of this job has nothing to do with how the last one went down.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think this is almost entirely fear-based versus intuition-based.
It's understandable. You don't have to try to get over this fear. This is vulnerability, like it is vulnerable to expose yourself to potential pain, loss, rejection again, and hope it turns out differently this time. Like that's a very normal thing for you to be feeling, is that nervousness. I'd be surprised if you didn't. I would wonder if there was something a little bit wrong with you if you weren't nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, I guess, if someone isn't nervous. Maybe they've done so much work on themselves that they have actually been able to be like, that was in the past and this is now. But like, geez, for the average person, like you don't have amnesia. You have a memory. You remember the bad crap that happened.
Right. And of course you don't want to go through that again if at all possible. So there's that protective part of you saying, sorry, now I'm having a weird voice thing and I'm not even sick.
You're not allowed to copy me.
I think I've been talking too much today already.
Okay.
But yes, it's completely normal. There's a part of you that wants to protect you from ever feeling that way again. And that's where the nerves are coming from. It's trying to look out for you, but I don't think it's showing you any actual worrisome signals. I'm not sensing anything about this job. I'm sensing this is all coming from past hurt for the most part.
So what advice do we have? You need a little mantra. Like that was then, this is now. I lived and I learned. I'm on to something new. Like I'm allowed to be nervous. Like you are allowed to be nervous.
Whenever you find yourself, and we do this all the time. This is not just you. Whenever you find yourself using an old experience to try to predict what's going to happen next, I find that it's helpful to think about it as if you were a scientist. So bear with me here for a second with this analogy. If you were in a lab doing an experiment and you ran the experiment, had a hypothesis of what was going to happen, you get the result, great. And then you decide, I'm going to recreate this experiment, but then I'm going to change about 27 factors in the experiment. And I think the same thing's going to happen. My hypothesis, I'm going to get the exact same result. I'm not a scientist. I don't think I took a science class since I was in 11th grade, but I do remember the scientific method. And I'm pretty sure all the other scientists in the lab would laugh you out of it and say, that is not the same experiment anymore. If you've changed 27 factors, you have a brand new experiment. You have to create a whole new hypothesis of what's going to happen here. And in all honesty, this situation probably has more than 27 different factors. There's probably countless different factors this time around. And so imagining the same thing is going to happen here doesn't actually make sense. So sometimes that's helpful for me to think of it in my own mind, because our brains like to overgeneralize. So when things seem similar, I had a career situation and I'm in another sort of similar career situation, I just lump them together and imagine the same thing's going to happen. But when you parse it out and see how different this experience is from the last one, and it's like you're running a totally different experiment in your life, it becomes easier to imagine a new outcome. So if that helps you to feel different this time and to feel maybe a little bit more hopeful, then by all means, think of yourself in a lab coat.
The only time I think the nerves would be warranted is if we were talking about the same job or the same boyfriend. Right.
Or even if it's a different job in the same company and maybe it was company-wide issues or something where there was a lot of similarity.
Right.
That's not the situation I think we find ourselves in.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, right. If someone breaks up with you and then they come back a month later and they're like, I'm different. I'm like, no. All them variables are exactly the same.
This is the same experiment 1 month later.
Yes. And we're not going to start that again. So yeah. Okay. I hope that was satisfactory to you, a Forever fan. A huge Forever fan.
I love the huge.
Dear Krachel, I really liked your last two side chats. The one about how to actually do feminine energy, that was in July, right? And the one from this month about why you don't need motivation. By this month, I think she means August, because that's when she wrote it. But I've got a conundrum. How do I reconcile the idea of not waiting for motivation to strike and instead doing things that are important to you, whether or not you feel like it in the moment, with the concept of feminine energy? They seem opposed, but I'm guessing you two don't see it that way. So enlighten me, please, Brie.
I really love this question.
Yeah, Brie's paying attention.
Brie's paying attention.
Nothing gets past Brie.
Connecting dots.
Yeah.
She's listening to all our episodes, which I also love. So this is great. So anyone who has been listening to us and has been wondering the same thing, wait.
I think there's probably more than one person who thought that.
Probably so. I think this is a fantastic question. I have a few different thoughts here, so I'm just going to go with what's coming up first. I don't think we've ever advocated, and I maintain that I don't think pure feminine energy is always appropriate. Just like I don't think pure masculine energy is always appropriate. I think the reason we all have both, and the reason the reason why we don't want to get stuck in a box on one extreme or the other, is because they play really well together. So when you the motivation piece we were talking about of doing something before you feel like it feels a little bit more like that masculine side. I'm going to take action even though maybe my body or my mind or my feelings are not aligned with that in this moment, because it's aligned to something bigger. So first of all, there is that more feminine component of there's a reason that I feel deeply connected to for why I'm doing this in the first place. I'm not just taking action for action's sake. So I tie it to that purpose and that deeper emotion desire for why you're doing it. But then you infuse a little bit more of that masculine action-oriented energy into the moment. I don't feel like it in this moment, but is this important to me on a grand scale? So I do the thing and hope that the energy and the motivation will follow, which it often does. That's a healthy way of combining both of those sides of you, where you're not going to any extremes, because pure feminine energy doesn't get very far without some masculine to act on the inspirations and the ideas and the passions. And pure masculine energy has no heart behind it. It's just action for no good reason, and is a quick way to burn yourself out and feel disconnected to anything bigger. So we need healthy amounts of both. I do think you have to find your own balance of what works well for you. So what might work for something like exercise. If you know you have a strong desire to feel healthy, to feel good in your body, to feel confident, to feel strong, but today you don't feel like exercising, so you need to tap more into that masculine side of you to take action despite how you feel in the moment. That doesn't mean you completely ignore what your body's telling you, what your feelings are telling you. It might mean still taking action, but consulting, how do I want to move my body today? Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to go for a run? Those are very different experiences of moving your body.
It's not all or nothing.
Exactly.
You don't have to work out for 60 minutes just because you're like, oh, I value health. And so if I value health and I don't feel like working out, doesn't matter. I got to push myself hard for 60 minutes today. No, could be I do yoga gently for 20 minutes today. It's not an all or nothing. And so doing something just because, you honor it, and even if you're not feeling like it, it's not an excuse to run roughshod over yourself, which would be toxic, would be kind of like a toxic masculine way to go about it. So the feminine is still first, prioritize my energy and prioritize my body. Like that's what we said in that side chat. I stand by it. And then given that that's the foundation upon which I'm going to take action, then what's an appropriate way for me to take action given the circumstances today, given where I'm at right now, like it's not going to be able to look the same every single day. And Kristen said a second ago, like, we're not taking action for the sake of taking action. And I think that examining your intention behind why you're trying to get yourself to do something is very important. Because if you feel like you need to take action because you feel guilty or because you feel like I should or whatever, as opposed to, no, this is attached to something deeper that I really value, those are two very, very different things. And if you're taking action because you feel obligated or you feel guilty, I don't want you to try to use masculine or feminine energy to get yourself to do that. I just kind of don't want you to do it at all.
Until we can reframe the intention.
Right? Yeah. I bring that up because I know where this question came from. And I know that was was in the mix, but it wasn't in how the question was asked. But I'm bringing it up because it does have so much to do with how you approach it. And yeah, if you're approaching it with like from a place of guilt, no, like we just got to start over at that point. And like, we're not doing anything if it's coming from a place of guilt, if you ask me.
Right. Then it doesn't matter what energy you're bringing to it.
It doesn't matter.
We're off track. We're off track from the beginning.
Okay. Does that reconcile things? They're not opposed. Feminine and masculine energy are meant to feed each other. They're meant to be like a symbiotic relationship. So I still think we start with honoring our need for space and honoring our body and our energy, the way we talked about in that side chat about feminine energy. And then we do still hold ourselves accountable and we do still ask ourselves to do things, but not from this, like, I think that's where I was coming from when it came from that place of when I'm talking about guilt. I think that there's often this, like, when we think of motivation, we think of shame and we think of I have to, and we think of like, being forced to do something. And instead, it's no, I'm not then going to do something from that place. I'm going to honor, okay, I have a deeper value. How do I connect that with what I say I want in a way that actually honors my body and my energy? Like if you divorce those two things, then then whatever you're doing, I don't feel like you're going to feel connected with it. I feel like you're going to be like a robot doing crap and feeling like shit the whole time because you don't have any sort of connection to how you feel or your body or a deeper value system. So these two things have to go together. Not only are they not opposed, they have to go together.
Yeah, it's the yin yang kind of a balance here where I think the feminine side is why are we doing it and how can we do it in a way that best honors our energy right now? And the masculine side is what are we doing and how do we make sure we actually make progress on it? And we need all of that to make anything happen and to make it happen in the right way that's going to ultimately serve your goals. So again, this is not either or. I think that was the long way of getting to the short answer, which is both and.
Both and. I mean, she knew, she just didn't know how to reconcile them. Like she knew that was true. She just didn't get how. So I hope that helps, Brie. I'm slightly high on cold medicine right now. So who knows if that was helpful. All right, read the third one, please.
Okay. Dear Krachel, I'm having a hard time with my family right now. Many of my siblings and aunts and uncles' political beliefs are diametrically opposed to mine, which would be annoying but manageable, except some of the stuff they believe is straight up conspiracy and falsehood. It makes me so angry. I've historically been someone who doesn't like conflict and avoids speaking up, but lately I've been trying to use my voice more. How do I express myself around my family and push back on the crazy stuff they believe? That is from Teresa.
Okay, Teresa, and many like Teresa, you're not going to love what I have to say. But this is just like a tried and true phase that a lot of you people, Kristen can identify with this, a lot of you people pleasers, a lot of you like type 9s out there, like you go through this phase where you're like, I'm going to speak up for myself and you better hear what I have to say. And like, you're like, I'm going to be bad, like you're trying, right? Like you're trying to be bad. And then you think you have to say every goddamn thing you think. And then you think you have to argue with every single MFer who like believes in conspiracy theories. And you feel like it's your job now to be like the purveyor of truth and the purveyor of words. That's not your job. Like you have now swung from one extreme, which is don't say anything, don't rock the boat, don't create conflict, to, which is very normal. This is what happens when you're trying to get out of an old pattern. You sometimes overshoot it because you think if I don't overshoot it, I'm not going to get there. You overshoot it. And now you're kind of in another extreme of now I have to express myself way too much. And with people like what you're describing, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think most of us know exactly what you're talking about. With people like that, there is no point in trying to argue with them or trying to get them to see a different way. I really think that there might be some people you can talk to, but if it's the way you're describing, when someone has attached their identity to their beliefs, it's done. It's too late to try to argue with them. Because now, anytime you pick on their beliefs, they take it personally. You are attacking them. You're not just expressing an opinion about a political bullet point, right? You are expressing something that makes them feel personally attacked because they believe this is part of who they are. Like, it's too late. You can't change people's identity without their consent. And they absolutely do not consent to you trying to change their identity. So you don't have to say anything. It is not your obligation to say anything.
Yes. Okay. I don't know if this person's a type 9, but she said she historically has not liked conflict. So there might be a little bit of that going on. So I'm going to level with you. I've been here. I have done the pendulum swing where I have felt like I didn't speak up enough. And then I speak up in inappropriate times when it's actually not productive, or choose the most difficult people to speak up against, to challenge yourself or something, or speak up in such an overly direct and confrontational way to try to be opposite from how you have been, that one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get more and more frustrated, or at some point you might just say, well, that was a failed experiment. Maybe I'll just go back to not speaking up because that was disastrous. And so you actually haven't supported the ultimate goal here in speaking up more often for yourself. Now, I do think there is a difference in when your family is sharing these things. I'm not saying stay silent and act like you agree and nod your head quietly and that's not what we're saying. We're not saying betray your own beliefs in the name of keeping peace. What we are saying is this the best avenue for you to practice speaking up? And what is the ultimate goal here? Is the goal to change their mind? Because like Rachel said, whatever you share, whether it's full of fact, whether you point, it doesn't matter how you share it, what you share, you're not going to change people's mind when they are that rooted. And only they can change their mind if they are open to it. You cannot make them open to it. And you will make yourself hoarse, yelling at a brick wall, trying to change someone's opinion once they have identified with it the way Rachel mentioned. So not only will you not feel like your self-expression here is well received or quote unquote working, you'll get more frustrated by it. You're also going to create probably a lot more disconnection with your family, which maybe you don't care, but maybe you do. So if the point is to try to convince them they're wrong or to try to open up discussion, I'm not sure this is the best way to do that. No. Can we start smaller? If you're going to start speaking up more, can we find some safer people or some safer topics to start with, where it doesn't feel like you go from no confrontation to giant, massive confrontation where people are getting personally offended and feeling more and more disconnected the longer it goes on. I don't think that's where we need to start.
How
I
about
don't
we
think that's where
start?
we need to end, frankly, but we definitely don't need to start there.
How about we start with things that have nothing to do with people's identity? Like, hey, I asked for cheese on this at the restaurant, you know?
Hey,
Or,
I prefer Mexican tonight instead of Italian.
yeah. Hi, I would like to move our meeting an hour earlier to accommodate my child's schedule. You know, like that's a better way to practice speaking up at first.
Yes. And let's practice with people who are less likely to blow it up into a big giant confrontation, because that's the fastest way to take a people pleaser or a type 9 and have them run right back to their comfort hidey hole of never speaking up again, because that was terrifying. I dipped my toe in the water and it was awful and I hated it and I never want to do it again. Okay. That's not actually helpful to you.
So for those of you or her who's like, but Rachel, they're wrong. Yeah, I know. But here's the thing. I'm not saying you never say anything. Like if you're with these people and they say something heinous, you are totally allowed to be like, that is not okay. You are totally allowed to call it out. You know, say that is actually factually incorrect. Here is a place where you can go to learn real information about that. Like you can say that. Your intention is what really matters. If your intention is, I cannot stand for that as someone who values truth, that's one thing. If your intention is, I'm going to prove this person wrong if it's the last thing I do, not great. Because again, you have no control over whether someone changes their identity. And it's not your job to get them to change their identity. So if you're standing up for like what you believe is right, and you can't stand to hear people talk like that, that's okay. Totally say something. Just don't expect it to change it. Like, don't expect it to then change anyone's mind, unfortunately. You got to do it for you, not for them. And then sometimes, like, doing it for you means not saying anything. Like,
sometimes that's actually the most confident way of standing in your beliefs. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but there's something when you believe something and someone states the opposite and you have to jump right to defending why you believe what you believe. And no, you have to, why don't you see it this way? That isn't actually always the most kind of calm, confident way of grounding yourself in what you believe. Now it's like I'm defending it. Now I'm on the defensive instead of just saying, okay, that's interesting that they believe that. It doesn't affect what I believe, and move on. So I do think that, again, I know that I've done this. When you haven't always advocated for yourself and spoken up for yourself, you then feel like any instance where you don't speak up is now replaying that old pattern. And now I want to grow into someone who's...
Or it's like a betrayal of yourself or something.
Right. And really, the important thing is to feel like when it's appropriate and when it really matters, I can and will speak up for myself, but I get to decide when I will and won't do that. And the times that I intentionally decide not to say something is not a betrayal of self, is an active choice to put something else in front of this here. And maybe you want to feel connected to your family and you would rather, in this instance, not try to change them, because you wouldn't like if they tried to change you. If they were
they're actively trying to. I mean, clearly she doesn't like that, right?
Exactly. Like, they want you to believe what they believe. I'm sure they do, just like you want them to believe what you believe. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes feeling like somebody else is trying to convince them they're wrong. It just makes people dig their heels in more. And it doesn't not create connection. So you can at some point decide, is trying to change someone's opinion more important than feeling connected to my family? Sometimes you might say yeah, and sometimes you might say no, but I still believe what I believe, and I stand strong in that.
Yeah.
Okay, whether I choose to speak it in this moment or not.
Sometimes the most powerful stance is just to be unaffected by bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, you can just be like, that's cute that you think that. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that's just the power move, man. Is to not let it get to you.
Be unflappable.
Yeah. Cause like, that's what they want. They want you to be flapped. And so if you ain't flapped, that's going to piss them off a little bit more. So, you can always go with that too.
It's also making me think of my blog I wrote a while back about stop going to the hardware store for milk. If you're wanting your family to be someone who you can talk about politics with in a constructive way, and they hear you, and this is an area where you can be fully self-expressed and respected, they may not be able to give that to you around this topic. I hope they can give that to you around other topics. That would be not great if you felt that way around any conversation with your family. But when it comes to this, there might just be too many heated opinions and too much self-identification going on. And stop trying to get from them what you want from them in that one arena. It will make you both crazy.
Okay. That's our answer.
We can link to that one if you want a little bit more of a refresher on that concept.
I hope that helps. I know it's kind of annoying, but no, hopefully it's a relief. It's not your job to be like a crusader. Now that you have a voice, you don't always have to use it. It's fine if you choose not to. You're not betraying yourself by not always using it. You can be smart about when you use it.
Too. You're allowed to say, I love being around you, but I want to make this topic off limits because it makes us both upset and it makes us feel more disconnected, and we're not going to change each other's mind, but I still love you. And so in order to preserve the relationship and put that first, politics is off the table. And you might have to enforce that boundary a few times before it actually sticks. But that's okay too. That's a way of speaking up for yourself, to say, this does not feel good to me to keep going down this loop. And so I say, no more of that. I care more about you than about changing your mind.
And please don't go looking for the confrontation. Like, don't go, like, it's one thing if someone says something to you in person and it just riles you up and you're like, you know what? No, I really don't appreciate that. It's another if someone posts something on Facebook and you're going and commenting on it. Mm-hmm. Like, you're inviting.
Sure.
And like, has there ever been evidence of a single like constructive conversation had in the comment section of any website? Has
anyone's mind ever changed from something that someone wrote in a Facebook comment?
Literally never. So,
I don't think it's happened since the beginning of Facebook.
It is not. Yeah, it's not your job to police your aunt's Facebook page. Okay. like, let's just be real clear about that. And you know what? I know it makes you mad, but I'm like, she's got like 60 followers. Like, no one's seeing it. Okay.
And it's all people who already believe the same thing anyway.
Right. It's already like all of her old people from high school. Like, no one cares. Like, it's fine. Yeah. Like, I know it feels like you're in a bubble, but I'm like, most people aren't seeing Janet's post. Okay. Sorry to Janet. Okay.
I thought you were going to say Karen.
Well, I went for sure that too. Okay. That's all.
All right. Well, as always, we love to hear from anyone how our answers to these questions resonate with you. We always love hearing from our question askers. If you want to come back and share if it was helpful, if there's follow-up questions, you're always allowed to reach out to us.
I don't get nearly as many updates as I wish I did from previous questioners.
I love when we do, but it's more rare. So
excuse me, update me.
If you have asked us a Dear Krachel question, by all means, let us know what you thought of it.
Just a one-sided relationship, I guess. Okay. All right. We will be back next Wednesday with
the next episode.
Chapter 4 of Forever Alone. Okay.
All right. See you then.
Bye.